Sailing across the ocean, Fisherman spots something strange on the tip of the iceberg, which leaves him gasping. Sailing across the ocean, waters seemed like a baby sleeping in silence with no worries. The day was going great, the wind was flowing in the desired direction, and everything was perfect. The cold breeze touched their faces, making them the happiest individuals on Earth. Far away from where their boat was, they saw a mushroom-shaped iceberg in the middle of the sea. Standing strong and tall, the iceberg had something at the top of it. From a distance, they couldn't make anything, but still, curiosity kicked in, and they decided to take a look. Little did they know their peaceful sailing would turn into an extremely dangerous adventure. They shouldn't have checked that thing that was on the top of the mushroom-shaped iceberg. But then things don't always turn out to be the way we want. One thing led to another, and their most thrilling journey began only to discover something unbelievable. The ocean is a mystery. No man has ever been able to solve this puzzle. In the past, great voyagers left their home to search the other unknown world out there. It was the waters who guided them, helped them to discover those unexplored worlds that stayed hidden for centuries. This group of 3 people wasn't voyagers or anything, but 3 best friends decided to leave their worries behind and have fun for a day from all the hectic schedule. Opinions differ when they discovered what was on the top of the iceberg. For some, they were in the right place at the right time, and for others, in the wrong place at the wrong time. You decide. If you have sailed, then you might know what a wonderful world it is. With no rules of the land, the waters flow in its own pace. You come across so many things that make you wonder about the place. This crew of 3 decided to explore the cold regions of Canada. They left their comfort zone to find more about the life, where they stumbled upon something astonishing that changed their life forever. So it was Mallory Harrigan and her partner Cliff Russell and Alan Russell, fishermen by profession, have sailed several times in both pleasant and harsh weather, but never came across something like this. What all you can expect to see in the sea when you are a fisherman: some seals, fishes, or bears roaming in the shore. But that day they saw something else entirely. They had no idea how that thing ended up there in the first place, and that too in the middle of the ocean on top of an iceberg. 3 fishermen, Mallory, Cliff, and Alan, were sailing offshore from Labrador when they reached the desired point. At the top of a mushroom-shaped iceberg, they saw something which was almost impossible for them to comprehend from that distance. The iceberg was drifting in the same direction the boat was, and to them, it looked stationary, but it was getting closer every second. The iceberg that seemed to stand in one place was slowly drifting with the flow of the waters. Being fishermen, they knew how extreme a situation can be around an iceberg, which is very uncertain of everything. The movement at the top of the iceberg made them really curious about everything. The problem was, if they want to know what that thing was, they need to take their boat toward the iceberg, which was not an easy task. The current near the iceberg was high that day, but they took a risk, and something unbelievable happened. Looking from the distance, the mysterious thing at the top of the iceberg stunned everybody when something moved a little, but there was no way of how something can even reach the top of the iceberg of such height. Looked above at the sky, they could see seagulls hovering in the sky. Those seals can stay on land, but then moving to such heights from the sea was almost impossible. That thing, for sure, was no bear, as it would have been obvious in the first glance. What was that thing? Animal or something else? They found out. Buying various types of fish from the market might not tell about the struggle these fishermen have gone through while they catch them. The trio knew that the condition wasn't getting better in the sea, but they just can't leave like that without being sure what it was. The wind was getting heavier, which made the current more difficult to cross. You can imagine the situation this trio was in, like the water was making the sail difficult, and that things on the top moved several times. They had to do something. You might not have seen in the movies where a fisherman boat struggling with heavy tides and the captain of the ship speaking on the radio shouting and telling the other side about their coordinates while the ship takes all the beatings from the sea. Though this trio wasn't expecting something like this, still they made sure to tell their last location on the radio. Now it was time to move towards the iceberg to see what the thing actually was. Soon their life wouldn't be the same. Everybody has an opinion of their own for everything. Even Mallory, Cliff, and Alan had very different views for the situation. Mallory wanted to see what was that thing on top of the mushroom-shaped iceberg. Cliff supported her desire, but it was Alan who was not very sure of the idea. Mallory and Cliff tried to convince Alan, who was stuck on the idea that they should go back, as it wasn't a good idea to explore the iceberg at that moment. But after seeing Mallory so determined, Alan agreed. The trio was ready to discover something unbelievable. While they moved towards the mushroom-shaped iceberg, they kept on discussing the possibility of what it could be. The idea of a bear was out, but what if it was a baby bear? They found out they were wrong. They even thought that might be a human, but if it was a human, then that person might have tried to show signs because there was no way he wouldn't have noticed a boat from the top of the iceberg. So they found out what it actually was. Certainly no bear or baby bear, and no human. Then what? Icebergs are considered the most dangerous thing that a ship can face while sailing in the sea. They are big and flow deep in waters. There is no way to tell how deep an iceberg is if you see it from a distance. You know what happened to the ship Titanic, which sank near Newfoundland in 1912. The movie showed us the wrath of a single iceberg that had the capacity to sink a ship like Titanic. This trio was on a fishing boat, and the danger was for real. They knew that, and still they moved forward. According to the ocean specialist, iceberg has a tendency to flip over at times. When they flip, they produce immense energy that can cause tsunamis and can even trigger earthquakes. There is no specific time when the iceberg would flip, so that makes them very unpredictable. Even if the ship is miles away from the iceberg, it still can cause a lot of damage to the ship and the people on board. Being fishermen, they knew everything, but even then they decided to find out what that thing was. After the incident that shocked the world in 1912, the United States and 12 other countries established the International Ice Patrol. This institution had a very crucial job to play in the sea. The IIP was formed to locate the icebergs which are out there in the ocean. They form a detailed guide for the ships so that they can tell them about the possible icebergs that they could meet while sailing on a specified route for the ships. The trio was aware of the location, as they had been exploring the sea for a while now, but still the sea had something hidden under its sleeves. The IIP was a well-funded institution that uses airplanes and radar technology to locate the icebergs near major shipping lanes. The U.S. National Ice Center uses satellite technology to collect the data and monitor icebergs in the ocean. However, the technology is installed with a command only to track icebergs, which are larger than 5,400 square feet. Though this mushroom-shaped iceberg wasn't that huge, still it was an iceberg of great height and danger. The trio knew about the danger a single iceberg can cause, but the condition became worse when there saw not one but two other icebergs near the mushroom-shaped iceberg. The curiousness was making things difficult for the trio, but they had to find out because sea is peaceful but at the same time a dangerous place to be wandering around. They didn't want their fear to win over them. What if they regret it later? When reached near the mushroom-shaped iceberg, another problem came in their way. There was no place to stop the ship so that somebody could go to the top of the iceberg to actually see what that thing was. Now when they were near the iceberg, it was almost impossible for the trio to see what that thing was because of the height of the iceberg. There was still a huge gap between the ship and the iceberg. They needed to find out the way to reach the top. And they did. There was like 4 feet gap between the ship and the iceberg, which was causing them a lot of problems. Then they did something that made them reach the top of the iceberg. After they moved the ship little further away from the iceberg, they brought the ship back near the iceberg, but this time in the backward direction. Have you seen a room on the ship where a helmsman steers a ship? Then one of them reached the top of that cabin, which helped him to reach the top of the iceberg. He saw that thing and shouted in shock. What did he see? On top of that iceberg, an Arctic fox was struggling for his life. He was wet, shivering and cold and looked terrified because these seagulls kept hovering above him. Mallory Harrigan was heartbroken after she found out that there was an Arctic fox which God knows for how many days had been struggling for his life. As we told you, it was a fox, not a dog, and fox don't trust humans that easily. The trio had to lure him to the ship, which wasn't easy, but this story of the fox and 3 human is something worth reading. Their actions were applauded by everybody all around the globe when Mallory posted all about it on Facebook. "It had probably got stuck out there looking for a meal," said Mallory. She added saying, "Cliff says he thinks he got out there to check out a bit of meat on the ice and it broke apart, sending him out to sea. This poor fox was left alone on the iceberg from where he had no way to move out. Aware of the environment, he didn't jump in the sea because knew that the water is cold and filled with sharks and whales. The fox stayed there and thanks to the trio which rescued him. But the rescue wasn't easy. Let's see why. The fox was just looking for his food, which left him all alone in the middle of the sea with seagulls waiting for him to die so that they could have a feast. But the fox stayed strong and eventually was rescued by Mallory, Cliff, and Alan. When the crew approached the fox, who was already terrified of everything, and you just can't expect a fox to be friendly as a dog. The fox made the rescue mission difficult for the crew. Mallory told everything about the rescue. How did they lure the fox to sit in the Northern Swan, their vessel, which could beat up the hard tides of the sea? Mallory was very happy to see that Fox has some really interesting survival instinct in him. By looking at the location of the iceberg from the shore, which was really far away, they could tell that Fox has been on the iceberg for more than a couple of days. But still, he managed to survive. "He was trying to run away from us at first. We had a really hard time getting him aboard," stated Mallory. "But they had no other choice except to break the ice on which the fox was. But then this fox did something unbelievable. He fought and fought to get away until he literally couldn't move anymore," said Mallory. "When there was no energy left in the fox, he stayed in one place and they finally placed the poor fox in the box with the help of dipnet. It was Cliff, Alan's son, who got the fox with the dipnet. Then they did something really special for the fox. They made a bed for him to rest. The crew made a bed for the fox so that he could stay warm and rest from all the exhaustion. They wanted him to recover and gave him his time and their love. We scooped him up and he retreated to the corner. He was too weak to do anything when we brought him aboard. He slept most of the way," said Mallory. "The fox went to sleep really fast. When he woke up, Mallory was the first one to notice it. They went to check on him. He was a bit nervous, but once we fed him he was pretty calm," said Mallory. "But there was something Fox wanted for dinner. All 3 of them were surprised to see that. But there was a smile on their face that in the end, they rescued a poor soul. When Mallory gave him something to eat, the fox didn't even take a look at it. He stayed in his place as if he wasn't hungry at all. But Mallory could tell how much pale and thin he looked. But Mallory kept giving him something or the other. He wouldn't eat it all for the first 5 or 6 hours. We gave him chips and crackers, but he didn't want anything," said Mallory. "He woke up and we fed him a tin of Vienna sausages," expressed Mallory. "The fox was very picky. He didn't want chips or crackers, but it was Vienna sausages that were his favorite dish." The crew kept staring at this poor fox who kept eating the sausages as if there was no tomorrow. They about reached the land. When they did, they released the fox and gave him his life back. When they reached the land, Mallory saw a doghouse and they decided to drop him there. The fox slept for hours and even had his favorite dish, but now he was free and on his own. He just shook himself off and that was it, said Mallory. After they left him in the doghouse, he moved out from there and started exploring the area. Mallory said that the island in which they left the fox had vast numbers of little critters and stuff which could keep him full, and there are few ponds in the area where he would be able to drink and bathe. Mallory even said that the fox fur should be brown. But why did she say that? Arctic foxes are very interesting creatures. When the scents rise in the temperature, they shed their winter coat, and when they found this fox, he was still in his winter coat. He was on that piece of ice for so long that it never changed color. Because he was stuck on the mushroom-shaped iceberg, this poor fox didn't shed his winter coat due to cold weather out there, but now he was on land, he would have a brown fur. There is more to this story. The fox was now free again. The island was his home now. The crew was really happy to save the poor fox, and Mallory tells that they can still see him from time to time because this fox visits several other old dog houses that are there in Williams Harbor. It seems that Fox liked the dog houses in that area. He could often be seen sleeping there. But the best part is that he visits his rescuers, not on a regular basis, but yet when he gets time. Just because he is an animal, that doesn't mean he doesn't feel things. The fox might be grateful of this trio who saved him from the unfortunate fate. Mallory even joked about the rescue, saying, "The real hero here was the Vienna sausages." Mallory uploaded the post on social media and the world went crazy after hearing this story. Soon this story was viral and everybody was talking about the fox and his rescuers. People were happy to find out that the fox was rescued and was now spending his nights in the doghouses. But people were more happy to read about Mallory, Cliff, and Alan. This is what they had to say. "It's so nice to see there are still compassionate and caring people in the world. Many thanks to the crew of this fishing boat." Someone commented on the post of Mallory. Their act of bravery and kindness saved the fox and gave him a new life. The wait was long and took them a very long time before they saved the fox, but everything went in the end and they saved the poor fox. We are sure that this little fox won't forget the three. Mallory, Cliff, and Alan have again proved that there is still good left in the world. Humanity is still there in people's hearts, and examples like these make us feel proud.